with the econ program, how to register for the major and things like that on our first year page and our major page. If you Google Northwestern Economics, you can find all that stuff. The major requires basically 12 economics classes and some stats and some math. But the 12 economics classes would be 2 intro classes, micro and macro, and we don't really care which order you take them in. And a lot of you will have credit from AP or IB for that, and that's fine. After the 2 intro courses, we've got 3 intermediate courses, Econ 281 Econometrics, Econ, let's say 4 intermediate classes, Econ 281 Econometrics, Econ 310-1 and Econ 310-2 Intermediate Micro, Parts 1 and 2, and Econ 311 Intermediate Macro. After you finish the core, we've got 6 upper level courses you can take. We've got a huge array of those. You've got like money and banking and behavioral and economics of gender and environmental economics and industrial organization and transportation and corporate finance and game theory and behavior, a ton of them. Every quarter we've got all of the core classes offered, including summer, and every quarter we have a lot of the upper levels. And so it isn't like, say, chemistry where you take something in fall, then winter, then spring. There's a sequence that you can start econ whenever you want, and you can pick up your progress whenever you want, and you can take a break from econ if, for whatever random reason, you never want to take a break from econ. The minor is a little bit shorter, of course. It's intro, micro, and macro. It's econometrics. It's the first quarter of intermediate micro, and then the second quarter of intermediate micro or intermediate macro, and then 3 of the field courses, plus stats and calculus. I'll hand over to Jim Hornsten, our first year advisor, in a moment. But yeah, the program is here for you, and we look forward to answering a bunch of your questions today. Jim, what would you like to say?
All right, thank you, Mark. I'll just quickly introduce myself. So again, my name is Jim Hornsten, and I'm sort of responsible for answering a lot of first year specific questions. Let's see here. I went to graduate school at Northwestern, so I was here for a long time in the 90s, and then left for about 10 years to go teach at some other places, and then came back in about 2008. Before that, I was an undergrad, and when I was an undergrad, I sort of dabbled in some of the sciences before arriving at economics. I was a runner at the time too, and I had a bunch of stress fractures, and then decided to pick a second major and thought that economics sounded more interesting than everything else, and so that's sort of how I found my way into this discipline. I like to stress that we're all advisors. So Mark and Sarah and I, and lots of other folks in the economics department, you can ask any of us questions, and it's often nice to have multiple advisors, right? So it's nice to get different perspectives from people from different backgrounds, different interests. In economics, I tend to teach microeconomics principles and theory. I teach some courses that are kind of businessy oriented about industrial economics and business strategy and things on antitrust and regulation. Like this fall, I'm teaching a seminar, a first year seminar on art and economic, and so that's sort of a new field for me. But it's interesting to see how economics applies to all sorts of different things. So later on in our talk, I'll talk about a lot of the very common questions that first years typically have. But that's probably good for me now. So I'll pass it over to Sara Hernandez, and that's good. Thank you. Oops.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning or afternoon or evening, wherever you happen to be joining us today from. My name is Sara Hernandez, and I'll also do a little bit of a brief introduction. I'm from Spain, and this is my 5th year now at Northwestern. I got my PhD from MIT, and I did my undergraduate in Barcelona back in the days. And I'm very interested in topics of international development, labor economics, gender, even crime, right? Even violence, which I think speaks a little bit about how diverse our discipline is. I've done field work in Kenya, in India, in Colombia, and I've participated in projects about global health, studying, how through education you can actually impact, HIV, how to get farmers to use more fertilizers. So see it as a way of encouraging, investments in agriculture. And I've done studies on violence in Colombia. At Northwestern, I teach a first-year seminar this fall, which is called Why Gender Matters in Economics. And we study a lot of different gender divides that we observe, right? In many different markets and, in education, in the participation in the labor force, in compensation, right? You may have heard about the gender wage gap. And I also teach intro to micro. So hopefully I will see some of you this upcoming winter or the spring, because we teach intro to micro every single quarter. And then 200-300 level field classes. Some people call them electives, which are gender economics and labor economics. I think these are very exciting fields of study. And I'll be happy to chat more, maybe when the questions start, if you are curious to know a little bit more about those. But as of now, I'm going to pass it back to Mark.
All right, well, thank you very much, Sarah. We have 3 students today to talk about their experiences here. So yeah, so of course, we the faculty are biased to think it's wonderful, but just 3 random students who grabbed off the street who are economics majors and tell you their unbiased opinions about how it is here. First up, we have David Shin, who's the president of the Undergrad Econ Society, as well as engaged in a lot of other things. And David, you're out here?
Yep. Hi, thank you, Professor Witte. Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in today. My name's David. I'm a junior from New York City, studying economics and music. On campus, I'm part of the Investment Banking Club, Northwestern Capital Management, which is our student investment fund. And I'm also the president of the Undergraduate Economics Society, also known as UES. Just to give a brief intro of UES, we work in conjunction with the Econ department to host various events throughout the year. We have events ranging from networking sessions with various corporate partners, professors talking about elective courses, research and internship panels, and more. Anyone is welcome to join, econ major or not. It's really meant to supplement your academic studies. And I'm happy to answer any further questions during or after the session.
Great, thank you, David. Next up, we've got Josh Tabuena, who is the president of the Northwestern Economic Tournament. And just a quick aside, so David, you're doubling back in music, and Josh is doubling in pre-med. And that is an interesting point that I should have pointed out, that a major at Northwestern takes about 1/3 of your time here. Then you've got a bunch of distribution requirements and things like that. And so that gives you plenty of time to do a second major or minors or certificates or things like that. Anyway, so Josh, tell us your experience, please.
Sure. Thanks, Professor Witte. Hi, my name is Josh. I am a junior majoring in economics and biology. And as Professor Witte said, I'm on the pre-med track. I hope to go to medical school and kind of work in health policy, health administration. I'm also the president of the Northwestern Economics Tournament. So a little bit about our organization is we're a group of Northwestern undergrads who put on a yearly economics competition and event for high school students to kind of expose them to the concept of economics and teach them about what it means to study economics at the college level. Because even though a lot of high schools offer AP economics, a lot of schools don't, and so we're just trying to broaden the scope of economics education and expose students to that. And so we plan an annual tournament, and we're a pretty small team, all pretty passionate about economics and education. And so we'll be at the club fair, and we'll be hosting an info session this fall. Yeah, that's net.
All right, well, thank you. And our next student is Rowan Lapi, who, in addition to being an economics major, scores lots of goals for the soccer team here. So she's a Division I athlete.
Hi, I'm Rowan Lapi. I'm a sophomore from Reinholds, Pennsylvania, and I'm an econ major. And like Mark said, I'm on the Northwestern women's soccer team. So I guess that I would just want everybody to know that econ is a super interesting and very diverse area to study. And I would encourage everyone to kind of not only explore just econ, explore everything, but explore it because the material you learn is so applicable and just overall exciting to hear about. So definitely worth it, I would say. So I'd say you guys are in the right spot. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions after the meeting or right now or whenever about my experience as an econ major and anything like that. So, yeah.
Great. Well, so I want to talk a little bit about strategy that first years might consider. That most economics majors go on and take jobs after they graduate. Now, some of them go on for things like PhDs. Those typically double major in math or do, say, the math methods and social sciences program. Some of you are maybe already in there, or if you're interested in that, if you're like really into social science and math, you can apply for entry as a sophomore. It's 2 years of coursework, and then you do a senior thesis, a senior honors thesis. And it overlaps with a lot of social science programs. And so for economics, it has a lot of econometrics in it, a lot of micro and a lot of game theory. And so if you were MMSS and you want to do an economics major, you just have to take intro macro, intermediate macro, and then 5 upper level courses. And that would be an econ major. But yeah, so people who do econ, they often go into, well, the joke being both kinds of jobs, consulting and finance. But yeah, certainly they go into tech, they go into entrepreneurship, they go into government, they go into retail, they go into transport. I mean, our majors go everywhere. They get some just fantastic jobs. One of them took a job running a resort in Majorca. It's like, I think I really want to come and see how that works. But anyway, so our students go everywhere. And upon graduation, they tend to do pretty well on the job market. I mean, a lot of them go in the finance fields or consulting fields, partly because those are areas where you get a lot of exposure to different industries and a lot of different clients. And so it's kind of like continuing your education, except instead of paying tuition, you get paid. But you're working in a situation where you get new different kinds of projects and you work with new teams all the time, and you might find that you really like one of the areas you work in. Now, people who are going on for jobs, they tend to, well, you need to do 3 things. We sometimes call this the 3-legged stool, that, you know, that's what you need to have a firm basis for support. Thing number 1 is you want to get your academics right. You want to have, you know, well, you should major in whatever you're most excited about. And by far the most exciting thing is econ, but, you know, tastes may vary. And so yes, you major in what you really like. And if that's econ, then yeah, you're in great shape. But maybe it's something obscure, in which case it's kind of good to have a second major in something like econ, or at least to take a bunch of economics and accounting, say from business institutions, and maybe some marketing, some public speaking, some coding. And so what you want on your academic record is, you know, some major, you need that, but a bunch of courses that show that you are interested in the business world. And so economics certainly helps with that. And there are a bunch of other courses that are out there that would serve well. Things like, learning and organizational change is a very pre-consulting type major, or things like, you know, Medill helps you become a very good researcher and writer. Industrial engineering helps the supply chain. So there's a lot of sort of options there on the academic side. So that's leg number 1, get your academics right. Get a good major, take a bunch of things like accounting and coding. Leg number 2 is internships. You should get probably, I mean, you generally want 1 the summer before senior year. Probably somewhere along the way you'd want to do Chicago Field Studies or one of the other internship programs that are at Northwestern. There's sort of academic internships where you can get credit as well as get experience. And so yes, you generally want to have at least 1, if not more. And so yes, so internships are important. And the third one is involvement in leadership. So on campus or off campus, there's things you are excited about and you should get involved. It could be undergrad econ society, it could be NET, it could be ISB, it could be one of the student investment clubs, it could be dance marathon, it could be the Daily Northwestern, it could be club sports, it could be whatever. But yeah, get involved in things you find exciting, and don't just be a member, but be a leader, be the treasurer, be the recruiting chair, be logistics, be the president, or create your own group. Anyway, so those are the 3 things you want to do: get your academics right, get your internships, and get involved in things, you know, something you can talk about in internships where you can say, yes, I did these things. Here's things I did that were huge successes. Here's things that didn't work out so well. Here's what I do differently in the future. But yeah, if you do those three things, you'll be set and good to go. We also, another thing about econ, we are very supportive of study abroad. And so it's very easy to, with our curriculum, to take out a quarter and go someplace and take, like intermediate macro, you can take that anywhere. A lot of our upper level courses that you can take things that are, would count as an upper level class anywhere in the world. A lot of our students go to London School of Economics or other schools in England. A lot of them go to Bocconi University in Milan. A lot of them go to China. A lot go to places in South America and Spain and France. So study abroad, be it in the summer, be it in the fall, be it all year. That's the thing that a lot of our students want to do. Two other options that are worth keeping in mind. One is if you're really into math, you're thinking about going for a PhD, we have a BA/MA program. So you can get a master's in your 4th year. And this is in no way like an MBA. It's essentially the first year of the PhD sequence. So it is a lot of math. But if you're into that, it's pretty cool. Another option that some students stay around for would be a 5th year in the Kellogg MS program, Masters of Science and Management Studies. And this program is essentially the first year of the MBA program. And so a number of our students stick around for that 5th year and pick that up. Let's see, Jim, Sarah, or any of our students, any other points we should make before we throw open for questions?
I'll say something really quick. Thinking of this in sort of a broad, long-range career preparation way, along the way, it's good to get to know some of your professors because eventually you'll need letters of recommendation. So it's not a bad idea to start grooming a faculty member early and just sort of get to know somebody so they can say, so-and-so not only was a great student, but also exhibits lots of desirable traits, integrity and other things. And so when you think about planning your schedule, it's useful to think in a very short run way, like what should I take this quarter? But also, what should I take over the year? Because some classes might only be offered one quarter. All of our intro courses are offered every quarter, but I mean like the field courses later on. But also in kind of a 4-year way, like ultimately I want to think about internships like Mark mentioned and jobs and careers. And so what do I need to do to prepare myself for those sorts of things? So for example, if we were sitting in a pre-med advising session, we would say things like, if you want to be a doctor, you want to do things in the next 4 years to make you look like you want to be a doctor. So, volunteer at a local hospital and work in a lab and wear a white coat, right? And shadow a doctor so you know what it means to be a doctor, right? And take the pre-med courses and join the pre-med club and get ready to take the MCAT and do all those things along the way, not just when you're a senior. Okay, so.
Yeah. And following up on, that's great points from Jim. Anticipating questions that get asked a lot. We don't care if you take micro or macro first. And a number of you will have tested out through the IB or AP. And Jim, you're teaching 310 this fall?
I am.
That's right.
I am.
And yeah, so we don't recommend that you jump into Jim's 310 or the 311 class this fall, not because it's so hard on its own, although it is hard on its own, but just that you're going to be a much better student by winter than you are now. That being at Northwestern and taking classes here, you just get better. And I think it's better to hold off taking 310 until, you've been here a quarter or two. You don't want to jump into a class that's full of sophomores and juniors who just have more honed study skills than you do at this point. But yeah, winter and spring, jump on it. Rowan, are you taking 310 this fall?
Yeah, I am actually. Just got it solidified. We didn't know if I was gonna be able to stay in that because they were moving around our practice time and stuff, but yes, I am in it now.
Excellent. How about, Josh, what are you taking this fall?
I'm actually taking energy and gender as well. So.
Oh, those are two of the best classes. Econ of Energy with Rowan and Economics of Gender with our own Sara Hernandez. Yeah, those are terrific. And David, what are you taking this fall?
I'm taking Economics of Education with Professor Ogawa.
That's cool. Oh my goodness, what a quarter for taking Econ of Education. Good heavens. All right, well, let's open for questions. If you want to put things in chat or in questions, we'll try to answer them.
So maybe now would be a good time for me to maybe answer some of the top questions that we usually.
That's great.
I've been answering some questions in Q&A, but certainly, you can put your questions in there right now and we'll all try to have a look at them. So I have a little list here, and as Mark said, the natural place to start, I'm going to just show you a little thing here. Let's see here. I think it'll help. Okay. Mark, do you see courses to take? Okay.
Yes.
So just a little visual guide here. Usually when you get here, the first courses you would naturally take in your first quarter would be things like 201, which is Intro to Macro, 202, Intro to Micro, the first quarter of calculus, which is like single variable derivatives, and then Stat 210. So just a couple things about this. So as Mark said, you can take 201 or 202 in either order. So for example, my first year seminar overlaps with Richard Walker's macro class. So if that's a time conflict, it'd be very natural to take Eric Schultz's 202 class instead. So you can do those in either order. If you got a 5 on the AP exam, you automatically get credit for that, and it'll show up on your unofficial transcript. We typically do not recommend that you repeat classes that you've already taken. And the basic reason for that is that even though what you did in high school is not going to be a perfect substitute for what you would do in 10 weeks at Northwestern, you still probably got the main ideas, right? And you probably could pick up a $5 older edition textbook on Amazon and brush up a little bit rather than retaking the class. I think over time, over the years, and advising many students, we've found that people who retake classes, sometimes it's kind of easy to get complacent because you're seeing things again and it all seems like review. And sometimes people will study for like 2 hours instead of 20 hours and then find themselves not doing so well in a class that they should be doing very well in. So anyway, our general advice is to keep pressing forward. It could be that you took this course 3 years ago and it was poor and you barely remember anything, but for the vast majority of people, move forward. If you took the AP Stats exam, if you got a 5 on that exam, you will get credit for Stat 202. We will count that in place of Stat 210. So from our perspective, you've done all the statistics you need to do at that level. If you have not taken stats yet, we strongly recommend that you take Stat 210. This is basically the intro stats level, but it's like been optimized for economics. So in other words, it includes the stuff that we care about and it excludes the stuff that we don't really care about. And so Stat 202 is more of a general course that's just not as good at preparing you for things like econometrics. That is like the follow-up statistics class. Okay. If you got a 4 on the AP exam and you took it this year, it sounds like you don't get credit because of some of the unusual things that happened with the AP exams this year. And that's something that you can follow up with any of us about. Let's see here. So most people will be choosing from those 4 courses. If perchance you have AP credits for all 4 of these, then what we typically do is we advise you to take what we call related courses. You can look at our first year focus page for a better explanation of this, but here we're kind of looking for things that are either in the social sciences or like they're quantitative focused, and they nicely complement our major and sort of develop that part of your brain. So the first thing you want to tackle are these intro courses, right? Now, by the way, with those related courses, many people will have transfer credits for things like history or psychology, sociology. So you probably, it's a very good chance that you've already satisfied a number of these without even doing anything. And then in the course of like doing all of your distros, usually you wipe these out. So typically you don't spend a lot of time worrying about related courses. And then the core classes, or I like to call them tools classes, that's like the 310s and 311. And you can also think of 281 that way. Those are the courses that we typically recommend, like Mark said, that you wait for a quarter to get into. It's a good idea to let yourself acclimate. Northwestern is a very good university, and most of the students here have been very successful in high school. And so, most of you have just, done a great job at everything so far. But now, it's our job to challenge you, and these are tough courses. We usually don't recommend that you double up on them, at least until you've had a chance to really settle in and just learn what it's like to take midterms here and finals, and learn what it's like to manage your time, find quiet places to study and study groups, and, tutoring and resources and things like that. So anyway, it's very common for people to take 310-1, for example, in the winter. That'll be a big class, a lot of people, getting started that way. And then the field courses are things that you take usually as a junior or senior. So unlike some disciplines like history, economics is very linear, where there's a lot of flexibility and choice within the intros, but you sort of do all the intros first. And then there's a fair amount of flexibility in the core courses, but you like do those second, and then you get to the elective classes. Another question people often have is, okay, so maybe I took the AP exam, the BC exam, or the AB exam, and I got a score that gives me credit for this. Should I take more math? And our general advice is, the more math you take, the better. Nobody's ever going to, accuse you of having more math. But at the same time, at some point, you have to sort of do a cost-benefit analysis and decide, okay, do I need this moving forward? Do I like this? Is this preparing me for something? And so, for example, Math 220-2, which gets into integrals, is a great class, and we recommend that you take it. But you typically, technically you don't need it. We don't test you on doing integrals in economics typically. So generally take more math, that's great, but you don't really need to, and those are good discussions to have with your advisor. Some people ask, why should I take 310-1 in the fall? And again, not to be too redundant here, but at Northwestern, we move pretty quickly. So for example, in 310-1, we'll cover 11 chapters in 10 weeks. And so we go quickly. All of a sudden, you're doing partial derivatives, and you're doing problems that have like six steps in them to solve rather than 2 steps. You're dealing with nonlinear equations and things. And so it's certainly doable, and we graduate roughly 300 students a year. It's like the biggest major at Northwestern, economics is. But oftentimes it makes sense to sort of do things in due time and not try to rush. Actually, that's probably good for me. Probably a lot of other people can talk about this. So I will bow out. But those are some of the common questions, and I'll jump into Q&A and start answering some there. Thank you.
All right. Any thought from Sarah or the students? So we can jump on some of these questions. If you think about graduate school and economics, should you take more math? Sarah, you want to take that one?
It was precisely going to be my addition, which is, the econ major, I don't think we do any justice in the requirement for math, because the discipline is very mathematical. And when you get, and if you do love the math, right, and you take Econ 201 or you take Econ 202, you might be left thinking like, what was the math? Where was the math there, right? But it's gonna show up, and you're gonna be able to use plenty of derivatives, which is pretty much a lot of what we do. When you get to the 300 level classes, right? Econ 310-1, I don't teach it myself, but I'm sure you, Jim can say that, like, you're gonna be maximizing, right? You have to be comfortable with all these optimization tools. And then when you get to the electives, right? You're going to see that the math is pretty much there in absolutely everything we do, right? And so if you do love the math and you're thinking about, you know, perhaps a double major with math or statistics or computer science, I think it's a great, to take econ classes or to even consider a major or minor in econ. It's a great partnership. It's a great complement to go with math.
All right. How difficult is it to double up on econ electives? Oh, I think it's just fine. That, I mean, you're going to be taking 4 classes per term anyway, and an econ elective is just a class. So I think plenty of people double up on electives. You know, I'm not saying it. I'd be careful at taking, say, 310-1 and econometrics in the same quarter. I think that would be kind of a challenge. But say taking monopoly and competition and labor economics in the same quarter, I think that would be fine. Oh, what about going for the Kellogg certificate program? Hey, are any of our students here thinking about going for the Kellogg certificates? There's 2. Kellogg's got a certificate in financial economics and managerial analytics. There's sort of 4 class sequences typically done in junior or senior year. Are you any guys thinking about that? Nah. So typically, I mean, to do the Kellogg certificates, I mean, you should Google Kellogg certificate prerequisites, but for the most part, you would take Econ 310-1 and the advanced econometrics, the 381 type course. And yeah, so you can typically get that done by the end of sophomore year. You want to take a lot of math your first year and take usually math 314 in the fall of your sophomore year. Math 314 is prob and stats for econometrics. Then you would take the advanced econometrics in the winter and spring of sophomore year, and then you could start Kellogg in the spring of sophomore year. And if you're really into math, you could skip to the 381 econometrics and skip over the 281 econometrics, but I don't know, I kind of like to start with the 281 econometrics. I think it's good to get grounded there. What else would people want to know about? Is it possible to double major math and econ and be pre-med? Well, I mean, I think so. I mean, it's tough. I mean, like Josh is doing bio and econ and all the other pre-med. And so bio would overlap with your pre-med more than math would. It'll be tricky, but I think it's possible. And certainly econ makes it possible because we're very flexible, that quarters that have a lot of required math or pre-med requirements, you could just go light on econ or even skip econ that quarters and then take more in quarters that are lighter for you. Are there concentrations in econ? There are concentrations if you choose to do them. Like Jim, you might be able to suggest what would be a concentration in industrial organization?
Yeah, I mean, if you found yourself heading toward the corporate world, right? Some natural courses you might take. We have industrial organization, that's Econ 349, which is about how firms compete. There's a related, like a sister course, 350 on monopoly, antitrust regulation, which is a little bit more about the public policy and things like, you know, Facebook networks and electricity, natural monopolies and things like that. But then there are other sorts of focus classes on healthcare, on energy, on transportation. So like things that get at particular sectors. Another concentration to think about might be something like government, right? I think that one's a little easier to say because there's like public finance, state and local public finance, public policy, political economics, right? So there's very natural collections of courses, and we also have some that are very empirical. So if you take econometrics and you're chomping at the bit to flex your regression skills, there's a number of those. So for example, Sarah's classes on labor and gender would be very good that way. And so somewhere on our website, we now have this, that there are, some suggested tracks. We don't have any formal tracks, but informally, there are certainly collections. And if any of you, were planning on heading to graduate school, that was one of the questions I was just looking at in Q&A. We could certainly, help you transition and say, okay, load up on the math and maybe sit in on some of the graduate level courses and things like that. So ultimately, come in and talk to an advisor, and we can help you with those sorts of things.
Sorry, can I add something to that, talking about concentrations? If you're someone who is interested in international development and you're thinking, I would love to work one day for the World Bank, we offer a great combination of classes, of course, 300 level electives, including the economics of developing countries, economic development in Africa, economic growth and development. And I think you're going to be exposed to like great work that is being done at the moment. And that it also overlaps with what Jim was saying about the government works, right? Because economists do a lot of policy evaluations, and we can advise, policymakers, like what's the best thing that they can do to address a particular problem that we see, right? And so if that's something that it's interest to you, we certainly have plenty of electives and options to pursue that career later on.
And that's a great point, Sarah. A lot of our students do get involved in research with some of the faculty, like the development folks and the industrial organization folks have a lot of need for helpers. And so there's this thing called ECON Lab where you can apply and say your skills, and people who are looking to hire undergrads say what they're looking for, and trying to make an efficient labor market there. So some of you asked about what happens if you choked on the AP exam and got a 4. You're so close to the 5, you got the 4, and you feel like you've got a really good background. Send me an email. We can discuss that whether it's appropriate to retake these things, or to look at taking trying the next step up. What are some majors people do with econ? So I mean, essentially everything, but I mean, there's certainly math, MMSS, industrial engineering are big ones. We have a lot of people who double major in social policy through School of Education, social policy, and in learning and organizational change in the School of Education, social policy. So social policy and LOC. A lot of people double in poli-sci and statistics and psychology with economics. Trying to think, what are some of the other big ones that people compare or combine with? Oh, and then certainly business institutions is a big minor. Are any of you, Rowan or Josh? Rowan, you're doing BIP?
Yeah, I think.
In there.
What'd you say?
How much BIP have you done so far?
I haven't really gotten into much, just because like with our soccer schedules, but we try to do it more so this coming winter and fall. I mean, spring.
Yeah,
like with accounting and finance and stuff.
Yeah, they got a great accounting class. They got marketing. They've got some finance. They've got some economic history. They've got these courses. I'm blanking the names, but the upper level courses on things like history of investing and inefficient markets and behavioral finance and entrepreneurship. And so yeah, the business institutions program is a very popular thing to pair with econ. Oh, and then also computer science. A lot of people do that, which is either a major or a minor. Computer science though is tough because it is a lot of courses. Let's see. Somebody asked about if you place out of math. what you should talk to the math department about what math to take, because you don't want to be in a class that'd be boring or you wouldn't learn anything, but you also don't want to get in a class you're going to get crushed. So talk to math and they can help figure out where you'd be most comfortable. What's it take to get admitted to Kellogg? What it takes to get admitted to Kellogg, like if you want to go to a good business school, and Kellogg is a really good business school, what you want to do is you want to get a good job out of undergrad. And so I think we do a good job prepping people for getting good jobs, and you go work in a good job for a couple of years, and then yeah, you get into good business school. So whatever it takes to get you a good job is what it takes to get you into Kellogg. It's been suggested that, so how was learning online for our student panelists here? I mean, I'm guessing all the first years who are logging in have put up with learning online this year, but how was it for you guys?
I can start. So I actually really like the virtual setting. I thought it was no different than like an actual in-person class. But Zoom does make everything very convenient, but it also leads to, a lot of distractions. So, you just have to be very disciplined to a degree.
And I can just follow that up and say that Zoom fatigue is definitely a thing. And I'm sure that if any of you have had classes over Zoom that that it makes you a little tired. So I think just navigating when you need breaks and how to fully optimize your schedule for the day. That's just like the biggest part of, I'd say, online learning. But other than that, I'd say things are kind of seamless. And once the technology piece is figured out and working, hopefully, it's kind of just like being in class, like David said.
Yeah, for me, I guess.
Using it?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, for me, I guess it was a little tempting to have my bed 2 feet away from where I did all my homework. And yeah, especially like I thought like walking from North to South Campus in 10 minutes was pretty bad, but I think it's nice to have that separation and just take like physical breaks between classes to like go for a walk around the block. I find that pretty helpful.
I just want to
watching my own Zoom lectures, I think I sound a lot smarter at 1.5 than I do at regular pace.
I was going to add to that many of the activities that we used to do in when we were in person, like I have a lot of small group activities where, I think it's very nice for the students to talk to each other and get to know each other. And so during class time, oftentimes I will split them randomly into different groups. And the beauty of Zoom is that you can still do that even in an online environment, so that you're going to have that opportunity to get to know your classmates, right? In a smaller setting, as well as in this larger gallery view, so as to speak.
Well, looking at questions, somebody's asked, what does it take to be part of a research team? It helps to have had econometrics and some coding skills, although not every project calls for that, but that certainly increases your odds of getting picked up for something like that. What else would you guys want to know? What's a good class to learn R? Boy, Stats 202 teaches R. I don't know if you can get credit for Stats 202. No, if you've got an AP in Stats and you can't get credit for 202. That's a nice question. Where would you learn R? I mean, I would learn it from Khan Academy, but I think there are courses in data science. There's actually a data science minor offered to the Department of Statistics that might be a good place to look. Yeah, R is a wonderful sort of statistical computer language for getting involved in research.
I just put something into chat just really quickly about students who got a 4 on the AP statistics exam. I asked the director of undergraduate studies over at statistics, and he recommended Stat 232 is sort of a nice option, but you could also take Stat 210, right? Okay.
Well, Stat 210 does not do R, unfortunately. No. Let's see. I was asked about what's the gender breakdown in econ classes? I don't know, Sarah, do you have data on that, or? I think we're somewhere like 65-35 male to female.
Sorry, I said that I think we did have the numbers somewhere, but I don't want to say it from the top of my head, and I don't remember the exact breakdown.
Yeah, I think it's that range there.
But we are trying to recruit more girls, so don't get discouraged by the inter classes. There is plenty of evidence that shows, right? And we have studies that show that like boys in the first year classes, introductory classes, do not give up as girls do, or at the rate at which girls, you know, if they get a bad grade in one of the intro classes, generally do. And so, you know, there is a world of opportunities in econ that takes you beyond these large intro classes. And they're very, in a sense, they're challenging, right? But once you get over that hurdle, you're gonna see that like perhaps it's a very good fit for you.
I want to follow up on that. I really agree with Sarah, with what Sarah just said. Yeah, that's right. That economics research, or like pedagogy research, shows that sometimes when you know, when one person gets an A-, they're like, the professor's an idiot. Whereas when another person gets an A-, they get frustrated and give up, or some other grade. But you know, just sort of general advice when you're thinking about majors and minors and careers and things like that. Give things a chance. You know, just because you don't do well on the midterm doesn't mean that should determine the course of your life, right? So sometimes there are things that take a little while to settle in. And ask yourself, do I enjoy this? Does this really make me think? Am I curious about this? And you know, sometimes you find that the things that are very challenging are also very rewarding. One reason why it's fun to teach economics is it's something I think we all very much believe in. These are very transferable skills. So no matter what you do in life, what's going to happen is you're going to encounter lots of decisions that you'll have to make where you have scarce resources. So you find that yourself, you know, in any sort of leadership position, on any sort of board, right? You have like so many dollars to spend, and you know, you have 10 things that you want to fund or 10 projects you want to do, but you have to pick the best 3. So what criteria do you use to do that? And so, you know, we also want to emphasize that economics is certainly not about money. It's often a way that we keep track of things because we all understand that $20 is more than $7. But it doesn't mean that we're all about like getting rich or anything like that. And certainly if you're professors, that's not what is motivating you.
Getting some questions about stats. So the classic economics statistics class is Stats 210. We actually teach that with our own people, but we're basically open to any good stats class. So we think Stats 210 is like the best preparation for Econ 281 because it's often the same people who teach Stats 210 as teach 281. But yeah, the industrial engineering or, you know, ISP, or there's a bunch of programs that have stats, or I think political science. There's a bunch of programs that have stats programs that are, or have stats classes. They're just fine. So we're pretty open-minded on that one. But we do think, you know, take a good challenging stats class is a good preparation for econometrics. But then econometrics starts with a review of stats. So we're going to make sure you have your hypothesis tests and your conditional expectations and power and things like that down. What else? There is an honors program in economics that if you do well your first 3 years, we will invite you to write a paper with one of our faculty members. Like, you know, you have to come up with a good question and see how it's, you know, compares with what's in the literature and how to extend it and figure out like what what can we add to the understanding of economics today that would improve the way we look at the world? And so, yeah, that's an option for senior year. What else would you guys want to know? Don't be shy. So somebody asked about, they've got credit for Stats 210, but they are not feeling fully confident. I would say, I'd say woof, woof, woof. No, that's my dog. I'd say jump to Stats 281. I'd say jump to, I'm on crisp. I would say I'd say try Econ 281 in winter or spring, because it starts with a stats review. And if in 281, like during the stats review, you're like, oh boy, I really don't feel comfortable with stats, then yeah, jump back and take Stats 210 or some other stats class. But it could well be that, you know, with a good stats background, the review they start econometrics with will be enough, and then you'd be fine. Like, you know, you're only going to be here for about 45 classes, and like the lower you start, the less high you climb. And so you really don't want to take classes where you're not going to learn much. So if you feel you've got a good background, you know, push for it and say, hey, I think I'm ready for something more. Other questions? Well, since it's quieting down here, I would like to thank David and Josh and Rowan for starting their school year a little early and coming out to advise our incoming students. Any last thoughts from you guys about, you know, what you wished you'd known at this point, or what you did in your first year that was awesome? You'd encourage everybody else to do it?
I can start, and just to add a few things. I noticed that a lot of people were asking questions about majors, minors, and other programs. And I just wanted to add a student perspective and say that it's completely okay if you're only interested in graduating with just an econ major. I think econ alone is a pretty, you know, venerable major for a lot of employers. So, you know, you don't have to be a triple major, triple minor, and get the Kellogg certificate to be successful in life or to get an internship. It's just doing something you're genuinely interested in and perfecting it. And I guess certainly transitioning from high school might also be really hard given the remote environment. So I would test out the waters first and give yourself the flexibility to improve. And I think that will make all the difference and make you very successful.
Yeah, and just going off what he said, I would just say, like, having some patience with yourself. Like, first time you're in college and now it's online, you got a lot of different variables coming your way. So, I mean, I think just set yourself up for success like the best way you can, and just kind of like take care of yourself and your mental health as well as like your studies. And I mean, I think everyone will do great.
Oh, hi. Sorry, bad connection, but I'd echo everything that everyone else said, and also recommend going to office hours. It's a great way to get support for classes, but also just to chat with professors.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. A lot of people are just, they're a combination of shy or like they don't engage in office hours because they think that's just for people who are in trouble or something like that. But, you know, it's, I kind of liken this to, it's like a buffet. You've paid for it. You know, we're there for office hours to talk to you. You're paying our salaries to do just that. And so, you know, show up, you know, get in touch, be bold. And as Jim put it, it's good to start building up relationships with faculty, because we can, you know, make suggestions about things we wouldn't have thought about, or you might need a letter of rec or something like that. And so, yeah, we're just people. Come talk to us. That's why we're in this game. We like talking to students.
Can I say something about office hours before we move on? In the spring, when we went remotely, I think I had the most popular office hours that I've ever had while at Northwestern. And so I don't know if it's because, you know, people don't have to trek all the way North Campus to the physical building, But it's a great, very, very little cost opportunity for you to join the virtual office hours that we're going to be offering. You get plenty of quality time, one-on-one, or with a smaller setting, or with a smaller group of students. So I do encourage you to attend all office hours, and in person as well when we return to campus, of course.
Yeah, I want to echo that as well. Remember that professors are like older students, right? So it wasn't really that long ago that we were in your shoes, and the things that you're going through, it's very likely that we went through those things too. And so, you know, get to know some of us, and you know, you can talk about economics, but we also, you know, also have lives too. You know, sort of outside of economics, and you know, so it's fun to talk to people about traveling or bicycling or whatever, and sometimes it's neat to see some of the connections between the things you do in the classroom and what's going on out there in the real world. I want to say one more thing about grades. Don't get obsessed about grades. I wish I had this handy, but they do a survey every year about, like, but you know, employers and what they look for in students, and they care a lot more about like the things that you study and connections you made and internships you have, and grades are like number 7 or something like that. So you know, so it's important to watch your grades, but don't let grades stop you from doing things. Don't you know, if some class is you know, is described as being challenging and hard, and there's a risk of getting a bad grade, don't let that stop you. The class that I teach, Econ 310-1, Micro Theory, is really the class that convinced me that I really wanted to be an econ professor, or a major, in fact. I took it from a professor that everybody said, absolutely do not take this professor. He's really hard, it's impossible. I ended up loving the class, liking the guy. He wrote me a great letter for graduate school. And so, you know, sort of forge your own path, and sort of, you know, think about broadening your perspectives and getting a diversified portfolio of skills, and, you know, take grades for what they are. They're a little important, but they're not that important.
All right, I think that's a great closing piece of wisdom. If you got other questions, or a noisy dog, if you have other questions, please send us an email. We can set up a time to chat. Welcome to Northwestern, and hope you like econ. Bye.